this is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast with my co-host Frank Santopadre, and once again we're recording at Nutmeg with our engineer Frank Verderosa. Our guest this week is a gifted comedy writer and actor who has written for popular TV shows such as Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Invader Sim, and The Drew Carey Show, and appeared in programs like Totally Biased with Kamau Bell. Oh, God. I think I fucked up about 12 names so far. Sven Gulli.
You got that one.
Yeah, Space Hospital and Cinematic Titanic. He's also had a recurring role in the aforementioned Sabrina the Teenage Witch as the baby-turned-adult Rudy Kazudi. But he's best known to audiences as TV's Frank, the villainous but beloved henchman and lab assistant on the long-running and wildly successful Comedy Central series Mystery Science Fiction Theater.
No. Mystery
Science Theater. This might take another week. A show he also wrote for 5 seasons. Currently, he's the co-host of the online series and podcast Cartoon Dump. And he performs all over the country with his old MST co-star, Tracy Bellew.
Close.
Trace Bellew in the Meds Are Back tour. He can also be heard every day as the co-host of John Fugelsang's, I pronounced that name correctly, Tell Me Everything on Sirius Radio. And his latest books are called Cats v. Conniff and 25 Mystery Science Theater 3000 Films That Changed My Life in No Way Whatsoever. Please welcome to the show an artist of multiple talents and a man frequently compelled, for reasons known only to him, to bring up the name Sid Melton. Our pal Frank Conniff. Oh,
Tell me everything.
Tell me everything.
Hey,
Yes.
by my standards, that was
close
so
enough.
well rehearsed.
Absolutely.
Hey, and I need to ask a question right away.
About the book.
About the book.
Uh-huh.
And we have to get this out of the way.
Yeah, but we're not going to make him read the title again.
No. Okay, now you mentioned Sid Melton.
Yes.
And I've met Sid Melton.
Oh, you have?
A couple of times. I've been at his house.
Really?
Yeah, I played with his
amazing.
dog.
Mm-hmm.
He had a house right by the airport.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, in this part, you say, we have been put on alert that in all likelihood there was going to be a Sid Melton reference in the book. We assumed it would be tied in somehow with his work with Danny Thomas, or maybe even his daughter Marlo Thomas, a feminist icon who smashed through the glass coffee table. Now,
That's what you seized upon in the book.
Yes. Now, I'm totally unfamiliar with this, and I need to be educated. Would you please tell us about Danny Thomas and a glass coffee
Well, I'm
table?
only hearing from, who knows if it's true or not. It's just a rumor.
Uh-huh.
That Danny Thomas, in his heyday, enjoyed paying women to come to his house or wherever, and he would sit under a glass coffee table, and then they would sit on top of it and delicately put it that they would go to the bathroom. And that was what he. And if that's what he's into, God bless him. Yeah, you know what?
So
That's
they
fine.
would drop a dump
Yes.
on the glass.
That's all I knew, and because I always would have thought Uncle Tanoose would be the one that's a weird shit.
It's God read.
Now, I heard a variation that sometimes Danny Thomas would dress as a priest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, while he did this.
We heard this.
And I'm a Jew and I'm offended. That's how disgusting.
Why
that is.
bring a religion into it? You know? It should really just be a personal thing. But you know what, God? He did so much great stuff for St. Jude Hospital, a great humanitarian.
Absolutely.
If that made him happy, God bless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mazel tov.
Mazel top, actually. He was a mazel bottom.
The book is terrific, by the way.
Oh,
We'll plug
thank
it
you
again
so
at the
much.
end, but I want to say
Thank you.
it is an absolute page turner. And for fans of this podcast, you must get Frank's book.
Now, one movie you mentioned in Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Right,
Yes.
which unfortunately has a spoiler in the title. You know, it tells you.
Right.
But that movie, we did that movie on Mystery Science Theater, and we did it. We did a whole different riff of it with Cinematic Titanic. But that's a movie I actually saw when it came out in like 1963.
You saw it as a kid.
As a
With
kid,
Pia
yes.
Zadora, a young Pia Zadora.
Young Pia Zadora, who even as a kid, I looked at her and I said, she should get a Golden Globe Award one day.
You knew.
Now, what was her husband's name again?
It was
billionaire.
Was he a sheik of some
He
kind,
was
or
a billionaire or a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
I can't pronounce his name because I'm anti-Semitic. But she won a Golden Globe Award like in the 70s or
Yes.
something for most promising newcomer.
From the
and
movie
it was
Butterfly?
always yes,
Yeah.
and it was always just conventional wisdom that people thought that he bought it for her. You know,
Right.
I'm not going to say that. You know, maybe she was great in
And
Butterfly. I haven't
I
seen
think
the
bless
he
movie.
her.
financed every one of
Yeah,
her
he financed all her movies, and so she ended up marrying well. But she did start as a child actress who was in Santa Claus Conquers the
And
Martians.
I think in Butterfly, which someone described as the size of stars, both in talent and in physical stature. In Butterfly, she co-stars with Orson Welles.
Yes. Who he thought the movie was called Butterfly Shrimp. That's why he got on board with it.
Let me get the tote board here.
Orson Welles was in it, but, greatest filmmaker of all time. But if you could meet his quote, you could get him in a movie.
Absolutely.
You know?
And so Santa Claus does win.
Yes,
because I saw this years ago.
Yeah,
and
I don't remember the plot, and I've seen it too.
Yeah, I've
Stay
seen
with
it.
me.
I think the title would pretty
I
much.
used to get it confused with the Christmas that almost wasn't. The one
Yeah,
with Paul
that's
Tripp.
a Paul Tripp,
Yeah.
which I never saw, but I remember
Rossano Brazzi.
the ads for that when I was a kid. Paul Tripp, if you grew up in New York, you
You
remember
bet.
he was the host of Birthday House.
That's right. Oh, wow. What a
Yeah.
reference. Birthday House.
But I never saw his starring vehicle.
Yeah.
So the Martians land on the Earth.
Yes.
They want to destroy the Earth.
No, I think they kidnap Santa and take him to Mars. Is how it works. Because their kids are all depressed and they want their kids to cheer up. You know, it's some kind of plot like that. And one of the big things in it is they all eat pills as food. The Martians, and what was supposed to be a big joke was that you see a Martian, ooh, roast beef, I love it, and he's eating a pill. Ooh, ice cream, you know. I think they thought that was going to be the big comedy moment in the
You
movie.
saw this in the movies as a child.
As a child.
How about that?
But I had, as I talk about in the book, I all I remember is that I saw it, and so that doesn't speak well for it, because around the same time, you know, I saw Mary Poppins came out that same year, which I always had vivid memories of, and A Hard Day's Night as well came out around the same time, which had a gigantic influence on me. But Santa Claus Conquers the Martians did not make a big impression on me.
What was your theater? You grew up in Manhattan?
Yeah, the Lowe's 86th Street, I think.
Lowe's 86th.
I went to, and there was like a Trans Lux, I think on, there was a Trans Lux that was on Lexington, I think at 85th Street, that would show children's matinees,
Wow.
which I don't even know if they do that anymore.
I remember when Manhattan used to have dollar theaters.
Yeah, oh yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, those to me was like perfect.
Yeah,
'Cause-
and you'd wait for the movie to be out for a while, and then you could go see it for $1. Yeah,
so even if it was a total piece of shit, you were okay.
Yeah, right. You just spend $1. You know what's to complain about?
Now there's a movie with an interesting title.
Mm-hmm.
The Amazing Colossal Man.
Yes.
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 Right.
Oh, very
Which
interesting.
Obviously they stole it from you.
Yes.
Clearly.
Now, what was the name of that actor who was the Amazing?
Oh,
Isn't it Grant?
Something like that.
Is it
Yeah.
Grant Williams? Grant
Might be.
Grant
I'm not up on
better look it up.
the actor who played him.
And remember, they did a sequel.
Yeah, War of the Colossal Beast.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
Which we also did on Mystery Science Theater.
Which he was like, because in the first one, he falls into the Hoover Dam.
Right.
And then his face is all smashed
Mm-hmm.
up. And he comes out as the Colossal Beast.
Yeah.
I like the Colossal Man.
You like yeah, for its time it was like a pretty good gigantic monster movie.
It's a good anti-nuke movie.
Yeah.
Really, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to give him a shot at one point, so it was a group of guys carrying a giant hypodermic needle.
Yeah.
And running toward him.
I know it has very absurd things like that were supposed to be serious. One of the things when we were writing the riff of that movie, the line that just cracked us up was someone said, like a military man said something like, that was a monster of 50 feet tall. And then Glenn's girlfriend goes, Glenn is 50 feet tall. Bert
I. Gordon, by the way, is still around.
Oh, he is?
We tried to
I've
get him
heard
on
that.
this show. I think we've reached out a couple of times.
Well, but
Yeah.
I told you not to hurry.
No rush.
Yeah,
no rush
yeah,
with
there
Bert.
was no
Was
rush.
Roger Corman supposed to direct this? 'Cause that's
I
what
don't know if I think American International might have made it, but Roger Corman did not direct every American International,
Right,
just about 750 of them,
That's
but not
it.
all of them.
We had him here.
Bert-
We had him on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Bert I. Gordon specialized. Well, they say his initials meant big.
Right.
And he specialized in just...
In giant or tiny people.
Yeah, giant or tiny.
Yeah, if
With
you
that-
were like regular size, you couldn't get a meeting with him.
With that really bad green screen.
Yeah, and you could always kind of see through it. It wasn't that great a special effect, even for its time.
Yeah,
seems
they
like.
would show that in both of the Colossal movies, you could see through the monster.
Yes, you could.
That's not a good sign.
No. Well, I hope Bert I. Gordon is listening because now he's really going to want to come on the show.
What I love, too, is when you cover the movie in your book, it quickly devolves into an attack on Chris Christie and a serious Chris Christie fat
Yes.
joke, which I really enjoyed.
I have done a lot of very politically astute Chris Christie jokes.
Now, you
my
mention a movie that if this is the movie that I saw, it's a favorite of mine. And that's The Brain That Wouldn't
Oh,
Die.
yeah, that
sure.
is a great one.
Now,
Yeah.
that as I remember it, there's a head in a plate.
In a plate, yes. And by the way, I was just at this sci-fi convention, Dragon Con. Someone did an amazing cosplay of that. She was literally the head on the plate and was being wheeled around.
I think you posted that
yeah,
picture.
I posted a
Yeah, it's
picture.
great.
It was just amazing.
Now, is this the one? Because if it is, it's one of my favorites. Where there's also a big doorway that you hear pounding on during the movie, and then the door swings open and this big monster.
I don't think that's the one. That sounds more like The Thing to me.
No. The monster resembled the thing, and it did definitely had brain in the title.
Oh, okay. Well, they saved Hitler's brain is another famous.
Yeah, wasn't that one?
They saved.
Wasn't there one called Donovan's Brain?
Yeah, there was Donovan. That was more like on the intelligence side.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there was I think it was this one.
Interesting.
There was definitely a monster that breaks through the doorway and, of course, smashes up the laboratory.
Oh, I it's been so long since I've seen the movie that might very well be the case. My main memory of that is just the actor played by Jason Evers, who did a ton of television, worked a lot, was a good actor. He played the scientist who, I think there was an accident and he saved his wife's or his girlfriend's severed head, and then tried to hook it up with another body, because he just wouldn't give up on her.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's a monster that breaks through the door.
Oh, okay.
At the end for the
I believe
big
you. I'm
finale.
not questioning you.
Now, you, as part of your job when you got hired there at MST, you chose the films.
Yes, I did, because there was we did at first we all just would casually watch like the first 10 minutes of a movie and go, yeah, this one looks good. And we did a film called The Side Hackers. And so we picked it, we watched 10 minutes, and then, a month or so later we're writing it. And, 20 minutes in, there's like a horrific rape scene in it. And we're like, we don't really want to do jokes about this, So we actually cut that scene out. And then we just decided someone has to watch the movies in their entirety before we just decide to do them. And that job was given to me because I was the only one there who wasn't multi-talented. I just was a comedy writer and a performer, and I was good at watching TV, whereas like Trace designed the sets and Joel designed the sets and Mike Nelson wrote the music. Kevin Murphy actually did the film editing. They had all these skills. I had none of those skills. So I got to just watch the movies in their entirety.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there have been a few horror movies with rape.
Oh, a lot of them, actually.
Yeah.
Like
we talked about on this show, Humanoids from the Deep.
Yeah, we also talked about the rape of Richard Beck with.
That's right.
With Richard
That's
Crenna,
right.
yeah.
Not a horror film,
but it scared me.
It's right in the title.
Yeah.
But in Humanoids from the Deep, basically these creatures of the Black Lagoon ripoffs come out of the beach and start raping girls. And then, what was it? Oh, God, what was the one? Damn it. The one where I know it stars Eleanor Powell's son.
Jesus.
It's... Oh, God, what? Which one was this?
And it had creatures who came out.
There were monsters that raped a girl, and he was the son. Of them.
Okay.
Eleanor Powell's son?
Eleanor Powell's son.
How strange.
It was called, that movie was called Born to Rape.
Yes.
Well, Paul's out there. Maybe Paul would be kind enough to look that one up for us.
He's on it already. Thank you, Paul.
What the hell was the name of it?
We should have it in about 3 hours.
Yes. The beast with something beast.
Really? Not Blood Beast.
No, not Blood Beast. But it's got a great transformation scene in it.
The humanoids from Human Resources or something.
Yes.
So tell us about getting to MST in the first place, because it's interesting.
It is a very circuitous route, if that's a word.
Because you started as a comic right here.
Yeah, I started in New York City in the early 80s. And you know what? Actually, the very first stand-up comedy show I ever went to see was in the late 70s at the Improv in New York. And Gilbert was in that show, and Rick Overton, who ended up years later becoming friends of mine.
Rick.
Joe Piscopo was in it. I think Rich Schneider might have been the MC.
Wow.
It was just all these great people, and it took me a while to work up the guts to perform. And then I did get started, but I had a bit of a drug and alcohol problem back then. As people tend to do in the 80s, some people. And I ended up going to rehab in Minneapolis. Minnesota is very well known for their rehab centers. I never knew this before. It's well known for Mary Tyler Moore and rehab.
Oh, really? And Walter Mondale.
And Walter Mondale, yes. And so I ended up going there, and then I just stayed in Minneapolis because it's a great town, for one thing. And also, I was like, I'm going to stay away from New York where I got into all kinds of trouble. It's a fresh start for me. So I stayed there, and just luckily there was this, as a lot of cities this was the 80s comedy boom, and Minneapolis had an incredible stand-up comedy scene of not just Joel Hodgson, but Louis Anderson and Jeff Cesario and Liz Winstead. And all kinds of great people. Josh Weinstein, who I met, and Trace Bellew, and all the people that I ended up working with on Mystery Science Theater, I met there. And so I was just this guy doing stand-up comedy in the Midwest, doing one-nighters and stuff. And then my friends started this show on a UHF channel, TV 23 in Minneapolis, and then the comedy channel started, which became Comedy Central. And here was a show incredibly cheap to produce that could fill up 2 hours of programming. So they picked it up on the Comedy Channel and then Comedy Central. And then in the second season, they were looking for a new writer, and I was just there, and they knew me, and they thought I was funny. They also knew that I was a big film buff and that I a TV buff, and I knew I had all this obscure stuff in my head, which was perfect for what they were doing. And so it was just incredible luck on my part. I might be the only guy to ever move from New York to the Midwest to get on a TV show,
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot of showbiz origin stories, but I've never heard one that started with, I went there for rehab.
Yeah.
And it kicked off my career.
Yes, exactly. So if any of you young comics listening, I encourage you to have a severe drug problem. No.
That'll do it.
Don't do that. But that's how it worked for me.
Now, you also mention a popular film by the great Ed Wood.
Yes. I talk about Glenn or Glenda in this book, which we didn't do on Mystery Science Theater. We did do, I think,
Bride of the
Monster. Yeah,
also with Lugosi.
Yes, with Lugosi, and I actually genuinely and unironically and sincerely love Ed Wood as a filmmaker.
You do?
Yes, absolutely. His films are completely batshit. They're terribly written, terribly directed, terribly acted. But there's this great feeling that comes through in his movies. It seems like a really part of him ends up on the screen.
Passionate. They're made with passion.
Yeah, they're made with passion. And Glenn or Glenda is an amazing movie. It's a film made in the early 50s that pleads for compassion for people with a different kind of sexuality. And I've said for a while, Ed Wood didn't have the talent of an artist. He didn't have the skills of an artist, but he had the soul of an artist. And I've made fun of his films like crazy, but I genuinely love them.
Glenda has made the decision. Glenn has decided to tell Barbara of his dual personality. To tell her of the nighties and negligees, the sweaters and skirts, the robes and dresses, the stockings and the high-heeled shoes, the wig and the makeup. All that goes to make Glenn into Glenda. He tells Barbara he cannot cheat her of the knowledge that she, as his fiancée, should possess. All the facts. He tells her softly, hurriedly at first, then slowly as he becomes more technical. His hands move to caress the smooth material of her Angora sweater, which he has so long and so desperately wanted to put on his own body.
You should talk to Bob Burns. Have you talked to Bob Burns?
No.
Wow.
Bob's around. He was on our show, and he was a friend of Ed's.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We'll connect you guys.
Oh, great.
You should talk to him.
Because I think Bride of the Monster was originally going to be called Bride of the Atom.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's also got the great Tor Johnson.
Yes, Tor Johnson is also in Plan 9. and is also in Beast of Yucca Flats.
Oh, yeah.
Which was made by, I think, the filmmaker that we really discovered on Mystery Science Theater, which is Coleman Francis, who, believe me, if you think Ed Wood is the worst director ever made, he doesn't hold a candle to Coleman Francis, you know.
Who's the guy that made The Creeping Terror? Because that's
that guy.
That's
I
about
forget
the worst.
his name, but you know what? This guy.
Wait.
We might have an
Wait.
answer on this.
This might be the first time Paul came up with something.
I only have a
You want a
partial
drum roll?
answer. We're already in trouble. So Peter Ford
Maybe.
is who you're talking
Peter
about.
Ford would be Eleanor Powell's son.
Yes.
Yep. And I'm not sure which movie, though.
It's Beast, I think, is in the
Oh, yeah,
title.
The Proud and the Damned. Fate,
No.
Fate is the Hunter.
No.
Cades County.
No.
Punch and Jody.
No.
The Little Prince. That
No,
must
it's
be it.
not The Little Prince.
No.
Not that.
Well, damn it. I thought I had it.
Oh, God.
it's not
See,
that.
All right, we'll get it before
All right,
we get
back,
off.
back to the workshop.
Back to
someone,
the salt mine.
when this airs,
Thank you, Paul.
a million angry listeners will
We'll
go,
cry out in
you know,
darkness.
how could
In
you
unison.
forget the title of that one?
Okay, here I buried the lead, Gil. One of the other movies that they did on Mystery Science Theater, and you're going to love this. I think in season 2 or 3, when in your early days, was The Indestructible Man.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Lon Chaney Jr.,
Yeah.
which I think was the earliest horror movie I remember watching.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, my earliest memory, it's almost my earliest film memory, is The Incredible Shrinking Man.
Oh, yes.
When I was a little kid, and I really think that movie was the one that just made me interested in movies in general.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And also in Indestructible Man is Max Showalter.
Oh, right. Who's
Casey
also known
Adams.
as
Yes,
Casey Adams
yes.
Yes, he's
sometimes.
come up a lot on this
He's
show.
in Catalina Caper. I think every Jerry Lewis movie, maybe, you know.
And
He's in a lot of them.
And he was in How to Murder Your Wife.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, the Inspector from the Superman series.
Robert Shane.
Yes,
Shane.
I think
With a Y.
Robert Shane and Joe Flynn.
Joe
from
Flynn.
McHale's Navy.
They're both in the same film, and I have a very vague memory of that movie, but I do remember, and I think we did a riff that, you know, Inspector Henderson and Captain Binghamton working together.
Yeah, they're
to
the
solve
mad
crime.
scientists.
Yeah, that was. I remember that's what makes me remember that movie, is seeing those two, Robert Shane and Joe Flynn.
Well, Gilbert has a great affection for Lon Chaney Jr. Do you share it?
Yeah, I love Lon Chaney Jr.
And if I'm not mistaken, was the girl in it Barbara Payton?
You're probably right. I mean, it's so long ago, I don't remember.
Because there was one actress.
Are we still
back
talking
then.
Indestructible Man?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thought you'd gone to another rape
Because
movie.
there was this girl back then, very pretty blonde, whose career fell apart. I think she fell into some kind of weird triangle thing with the guy from Detour,
Okay.
the star of the movie
Oh,
Detour.
I love that movie. Edgar Ulmer.
So it was him and oh God, what was his name? It's like a foreign name. He was like a romantic lead. Oh, I'm forgetting every fucking thing.
That's okay. We'll get Paul in here again.
Yeah, there was a triangle.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Franchette Tone.
Oh, sure,
okay.
sure.
So the guy from Detour beat up Franchette Tone.
Oh, wow. Who was much older than
Because
him.
Barbara Payton was fucking both of them.
And Francois Twan was married to Joan Crawford at one point.
Oh, that's
back in the
right.
30s,
And I think Barbara Payton then wound up being a hooker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a shame.
These stories all end with sadness.
And I think she used to like to shit on glass cups.
All right.
Well, at least there was work for her while Danny
when
Thomas
she would
was
go
around.
over to Joe Flynn's house.
You sure it wasn't Sid Melton's house? Now, how did you go from you were hired as a writer and you basically had to? Did you do some set construction too? When you were first hired?
I did. Everyone had to work on the new set, and all the other guys on the show grew up in the Midwest. They grew up around garages and power tools.
I see.
And I was, I grew up in Manhattan. The closest thing to a power tool that my dad had was a martini mixer, and so I was really terrible at building the set. And it was weird. It was my very first job in television, and it was really my first show business job that wasn't just being a stand-up comedy middle act,
Sure.
And I, I didn't even, the first day when we weren't building the set anymore, when we were just sitting down to write the film, I was like, is this actually going to be the job now? Because up to then it was like some shitty day job,
Now, you must have shown the Cyclops.
The Cyclops?
Yeah.
We did not have the Cyclops on that. Because
one,
a lot of the movie we would have liked to have had, but for one reason or the other, we couldn't get the rights to them.
That one had Lon Chaney Jr. And the voice of the Cyclops was Paul Frees.
That's
Oh,
right.
of
Paul
course.
Frees gets a mention in that book.
Paul Frees actually wrote and directed a movie that we did called The Beatniks.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's not a very good movie, but it's a low-budget film, and there really aren't any beatniks in it either.
And someone tweeted me and said that Paul Frees' son is a working voiceover
Oh, is
guy.
he really?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe Rob knows him. We'll have to ask
There
him.
are some
Well, I'm
movies that are just
Certainly not going to ask Paul.
there's some movies that are just entirely Paul Frees' voice doing every character.
They still use his voice down at the Haunted Mansion. I
Oh,
was
do
there
they
last
really?
summer.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Which is weird.
yeah.
So how did you go from being the writer and the guy doing a little bit of set design to TV's beloved Frank? And then tell me the origin of the Spit Girl.
Well,
me where
they
that came
just there was a guy before me who worked there, J. Elvis Weinstein. He was a hilarious, brilliant guy, and he was a teenager at the time, and he was the mad scientist sidekick for the first two seasons, and then he left the show and he moved to L.A. and that's how I got hired. So I was hired as a writer. I don't think it was a fait accompli that I was going to get to be in the cast, but they tested me, and apparently the camera loved me. What can I tell you? So so I ended up just getting that part. But I really was hired as a writer, and I've done a few shows where I performed as well as wrote, but I always just really consider myself a writer on a show.
Where'd the Spit Girl come from? Was that a Jor-El thing? Was that just...
I don't know. I think it was just the makeup woman at the time just threw that in, and everybody liked it. I think they were just looking for something. They had my hair straight up and in a Spit Girl.
Because it was a Jor-El look.
It was.
too.
A lot of
Yeah.
people have compared me
Yeah.
to Jor-El.
Now here's something interesting that I mean, look, Superman was invented by two Jews.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you look at, Jewish folklore and Jewish prayer, the names have an L at the end of them.
How interesting.
And so in
Jor-El,
Superman,
Kal-El.
Kal-El.
yeah, Kal-El, Jor-El, yeah, and
I never made that connection.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
So the names have an L.
That is interesting, and it makes complete sense.
And I remember one time hearing, I think it was Paul Schaefer was playing some Jewish prayer music, and it sounded in parts like the Munsters.
Well, we're going to ask Paul about that.
The Munsters was a mixed family, though. There wasn't
Oh,
just-
yes. Yeah, they had the one pretty girl.
Where did Push the Button come from?
That
was that-
actually, you know what?
Tell me it's from The Great Race. Push
It
the
is
Button,
from
Max.
The Great Race.
Oh, I'm so
It's
glad
absolutely, and the relationship between Jack Lemmon and Peter Falk in that movie is very much like what Trace and I were.
Got it.
Relationship.
That's where Push the Button, Frank.
Yes,
came from. We've
Absolutely.
talked about that movie on this show.
Yeah.
Not an entirely successful movie, but boy, it's fun.
At the time when it came out, it wasn't a big hit, and it was like a big budget hit. But I remember I liked it when it came out, but I was a much bigger fan of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, and The Russians Are Coming.
Oh, we've talked about those.
Yeah.
At length.
Now, tell us about a movie all of us have seen, Ega.
Ega is, I think I go into this is like a really kind of convoluted in terms of references or whatever, but Ega was made by Arch Hall, who starred his son, Arch Hall Jr., got the lead in the movie, and Richard Kiel, who we all know from the James Bond movies, and who I met at a convention one time. Incredibly nice guy. But this is something I never even realized until recently, is that Jack Webb, who I love, I'm obsessed with Dragnet. I'm obsessed with Jack Webb. All of his movies, everything he did, I'm obsessed with it. He directed a movie in the 50s called The Last Time I Saw Archie, which was written by a screenwriter named William Bowers, and Robert Mitchum played Archie Hall in the movie, and it was the real life story of Arch Hall when he was in the Army with Jack Webb's character's name, William Bowers. I mean, the guy, he didn't change any names or anything. And I had all this involvement with Ega and Arch Hall, and all these years later, I found out that The Last Time I Saw Archie is literally about Arch Hall Sr.
How bizarre.
I know.
I've never seen Ega. Have you seen that, Gilbert?
No.
Okay.
No.
What about the one with the typo in the title?
Oh my!
Attack of the Eye Creatures.
Yes. Tell us about the attack
Well,
of the
tell us
eye
that
creatures.
title again.
You've seen movies that are bad. This movie, you know right from the start that it's not going to be a good movie because there's a typo in the title.
Fantastic.
It says Attack of the, and then underneath that, the Eye Creatures. So it's Attack of the Eye Creatures. And it also has, I think...
Well, stuttering could be very frightening.
It was, Mel Tillis did a rewrite on it.
There's a reference.
And
bless your heart.
But and also it's a movie that has, if memory serves, it has alien creatures who are wearing sneakers.
And those are the eye creatures?
Yes, those are the eye creatures. And we actually did one of my favorite sketches that we did during that movie, and it was the Rip Taylor Trio, which was Joel and the two robots all dressed up as Rip Taylor, all doing prop eye bits, based around eyes. It was one of my favorite sketches that we ever did.
I remember Rocket. What's the one with Art Matrano? Rocket Attack USA?
Rocket Attack
I
USO.
remember that on the show.
Yeah.
And that one also turns up in the book.
Yeah. And Art Matrano, who...
Still around.
Yep. Wow. Have you guys had him on?
We want to.
Yeah.
He's on our list.
We don't want to rush it.
Art Matrano, in the world of comedy, he's kind of important in that he did one of the very first meta comedy bits about comedy. He was doing that on TV. I would see him do that on TV all the time. Right around the same time, Albert Brooks was doing the bad ventriloquist bit, which that stuff was very new at the time. You didn't see a lot of that on TV.
Let me ask you about some of these other ones. Time of the Apes.
Time of the Apes was a Japanese ripoff of Planet of the Apes. Blatant ripoff. The apes look just like the ones in Planet of the Apes.
Have you seen that one, Gil? Time of the Apes. There's films in that book you haven't seen.
Yes.
This shocks me. What I love is that in that one in the book, in the chapter, you go into, you start making references to Lancelot Link, Secret Chimps.
And you have Monster A Go-Go.
Monster A Go-Go.
I've seen that one.
Yeah. That one is a hard one to watch, even though it has the title of Go-Go in it.
It's from the title, it looks like so intelligent.
I know.
Tell Gil about Daddy-O with the immortal Dick Contino.
Dick Contino.
Which is notable because it's John Williams' first film score.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah, the debut score of John Williams.
Maybe I knew that before, but I forgot.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Was he accordion player? Dick Contino?
Dick Contino was an accordion player and an entertainer from that era, and but I don't think he plays accordion in the movie, although I might be wrong about that. But he's just like a young, like hipster hoodlum guy in the movie. He wears his pants very high in the movie. And the thing about Dick Contino is there's a James Ellroy novella called Dick Contino's Blues, where Dick Contino is the main character in the book.
Love that.
And it's in one of James Ellroy's books that are like 4 novellas. I forget the name of the book, but and I think he might have gotten in trouble with the mob and stuff. And he's one of those guys that I think some people thought was going to have a promising career, and then it didn't pan out. But he always worked. I remember he came through Minneapolis. I regret that I didn't go see him, and he had like an accordion act where he sang, and I think he played like UHF.
I looked him up.
Stuff.
He just died a few years ago.
Yeah, he did. He died just recently.
Yeah. Did you ever hear of Dick Contino?
Oh, yes.
You did?
Yes, yeah. Dick Contino, I've heard of.
We had the guy, Anthony Ferrante, who directed the Sharknado movies.
Oh, really?
And he told us he thinks he's a direct descendant of Ferrante and Teicher.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that cool?
Wow, yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
The shit you find out on this show, Frank.
Ding, ding.
So you did the show from episode 201 to episode 624.
Yeah, I think I did a little over 100 episodes.
And one of the creatures on it is a gumball machine, is it not?
Yes, Tom Servo,
Tom Servo.
one of the robots, is a gumball machine, and Crow T Robot is kind of a lacrosse thing turned into a robot, kind of.
And what? Go ahead, Frick. Go ahead.
No, The Day the Earth Froze.
Right.
Oh, that's another one.
That's actually one of the better movies that we did because it's like some Swedish film. It looks like Ingmar Bergman did a sci-fi movie or something, and it actually has kind of a good budget and some clever things in it. I think it kind of pushes the ceiling of was it quite bad enough? I think it was bad enough, but it kind of towed that line a little bit.
Right. You were picking the films the entire time you were there?
Well, I
Your
would
whole
pick
run?
them. I would pick them and recommend them to the rest of the crew, and then we decide on it.
And what happened to Frank when you left the show? You went to Second Banana Heaven.
I did. That was the last episode. I ascended, and I think I was. I don't remember. I think you can see me. I could see Gabby Hayes like up.
I think there's a Pat Buttram reference.
A Pat Buttram reference. Yes.
I can't believe I won't be able to kill you anymore.
Don't worry, Clay, because somewhere deep inside your soul, you'll always be killing me. And remember this, my sentimental friend. Even though I will forever be in your heart, till the end of your days, you'll be a profoundly lonely man.
Thank you, Frank. That's very kind of you.
And just let me say this to anyone out there who's working for an abusive boss. Do not despair. Never let him crush your spirit, even if he's already crushed your skull. Always be yourself and wave your freak flag high.
Geez, it must be horrible to work for a boss like that. Frank, could I ask you one thing before you go?
Sure.
Could you push the button, Frank?
Watch me rock.
And then there were a lot more incarnations. I mean, there was Cinematic Titanic.
Yeah.
I mean, even after you left MST.
Well, after we left, and then I worked on a lot of other shows. I worked on Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
That's right. You were Rudy Kazudi.
I was Rudy Kazudi. I actually spent my 40th birthday on the set of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, sitting in a crib wearing a onesie. At that moment, I knew that in some ways I was a descendant of Joe Besser, like wearing children's clothing as an adult.
Your 40th birthday.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then you did Invader Zim.
I
and
did
you did a lot
Invader
of other
Zim.
stuff.
I did the Drew Carey show. I did the Tom Green show.
Right.
And and then a few years, like about 10 years ago, Joel and Trace and I were hanging out, and we were just talking about how we missed doing, Joel for years, he didn't have the rights. He got the rights back, which is why there's a reboot now, but he didn't have the rights to do it. And so we just like put together a new thing that wasn't Mystery Science Theater, but was an opportunity for us to riff on movies. And then we discovered that, because we only did like 2 live shows the whole time Mystery Science Theater was on. And then we discovered that the one thing better than doing Mystery Science Theater is doing it live, in front of an audience, doing movie riffing live. And so we did that for like 5 years. And then Joel didn't want to do it anymore, so it broke up. And then a couple of years ago, Trace and I just started doing it as a duo.
And now you're doing it. You're touring as the Mads.
We're touring, and we're getting a lot of work. We're doing a lot of Alamo Draft Houses around the country, and a lot of movie theaters, and it's just a blast. It's so much fun.
Oh, you come from a strange childhood.
Yeah, that's one way to describe it. I grew up in Manhattan, and I actually grew up sort of around show business because my dad was a journalist. My dad, Phil Silvers, was at my dad's wedding, at my parents' wedding. My dad was really good friends with Phil Silvers and Jackie Gleason, and he used to hang out. My dad used to hang out at a place called Toots Shores.
Of course.
And which is where he became really good friends with Jackie Gleason. And also, too? I wasn't there. My brother Tony was there one time and met Joey Lewis there.
Wow.
Which didn't happen to me, but so I kind of, my dad was a he wrote a column for the Journal American in New York, and he was an editor for Hearst newspapers. So he wrote a lot about politics and world affairs, but he also was very interested in sports and just had a lot of friends from the worlds of journalism and sports and show business.
And so he was an alcoholic.
My dad, yes, he was. He, an alcoholic and a workaholic, and he just kind of drove himself to an early grave. He died, I think, in 1971 at the age of 57, which is really way too soon.
And your mother was like a manic depressive.
She was. She had. She suffered from mental illness throughout my childhood. She was in and out of hospitals. She had shock treatments. She had a really rough time of it, But eventually, she recovered and came out of all that. And the last 25 years of her life were great. She
Wow.
Good to hear.
Only had a little bit of that lingering stuff, but mostly led a very productive life.
That's an unexpected happy ending.
Yeah. She really, she was I think I even mentioned in the book that my mom was pretty badass. She came from that traditional. She married my dad in 1951, and all a woman was supposed to do then was get married and have children. She had 5 kids before she was 30, and then my dad got really sick, and it was just all very overwhelming to her. And she had some chemical issues, I think, inherited from her family of depression and stuff. And so she went through hell, but she came out on the other side. So it's kind of amazing.
That's a nice ending.
Yes.
Now, you were destined to go into comedy. Just hearing this.
Yeah.
Some people who've seen me are waiting for me to go into comedy, but
You fantasized. One of the ways you escaped was by fantasizing that you were on the Dean Martin show.
Oh yeah, I used
right?
to fantasize about like just being in show business and being a comedian. But the weird thing is, then finally, when in the 70s, when I was old enough to start doing that, I had a lot of fear. And when I went to see you, Gilbert, in that show at the Improv, which was my first ever stand-up show that I went to see, I so wanted to be a part of it, but it seemed like such a, so far away, something really hard to attain. And, I had a lot of fears or whatever. But my first open mic was at that Improv, the Sunday night, I believe it was, at the New York Improv.
What was your act like in those days?
not that good. And also, you know what? My first joke, and this will just give you an idea of how self-destructive I was in some ways. Is I think my first joke was I just announced that Frank Sinatra had died. This was long before he had died, and that they were going to be holding his funeral. But before his funeral, they'll be having Pat Henry's funeral. Because Pat Henry was So that wasn't the kind of thing that was going to get me, so it took me a while to figure out how to entertain an audience.
That's an inside joke,
Yes.
pretty inside baseball.
Right.
Should we explain that to our listeners?
Yeah, Pat Henry was a comedian who used to always open for
There
Frank
you go.
Sinatra. I updated it and made it Tom Dreesen. No,
Oh,
I'm
that's
kidding.
right.
I never did it again.
Yes, he was the other
That's
one.
right, Tom
famous.
Dreesen. What was this game show your dad was on with Groucho and Karloff?
Oh, well, I don't know if he was on at the same time with
okay.
Groucho and Karloff. He might have been, but most of those, there's only one existing tape. I know there's a show called In the New...
Was it called Who Said That?
Who Said That, yes. Yeah. And there is a tape that you can... someone, I didn't even know about it. Some nice fan sent it to me, and it was amazing to me as someone who, in my childhood, my father was... a very distant figure. He was, before he got sick, he was just always away, going all over the world, as a reporter covering stories. And then he got sick. So I didn't even really have great memories of what my dad sounded like, of talking to him. So to see him on an old TV show like this and to see him talking as a healthy person was kind of an amazing experience. But this tape, like I said, anyone can see it, and I don't know if it'll be compelling to you unless you're related to someone on the panel, but the panel is really fascinating to me. It's my dad, and it's Deems Taylor, who was a musician and music critic, a friend of George Gershwin, also involved with Fantasia, I think.
Wow.
And there's actually a big music award called the Deems Taylor Award that's named after him. And then the other guy is this guy, something Cattleborn, who was a famous commentator at the time. Harry Truman, there's a clip, a famous speech Harry Truman made after he beat Dewey in the 1948 election, where he does an imitation of this guy announcing that Dewey had won the election. And he's also in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington as himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. H.L.
Kaltenborn.
Kaltenborn, yeah. And then the fourth person on the panel is Dagmar.
Wow. How about that, Gil?
Yeah.
Remember Dagmar?
Oh, yes.
Who's the only one there who really understands this is TV, because everyone else, and you watch the show, it's so slow paced.
There's only one episode that you could track
that
down?
I've seen.
Did you try the Paley Center and all?
I years ago I looked at the Paley Center. I don't know if they'd have more stuff now, but so yeah, my dad did a lot of those kind of quiz and panel shows in the 50s. He was on, the only other time I saw a clip of my dad was on some documentary. There was a clip of him on Meet the Press being one of the reporters.
Very cool.
Asking questions. So, and also I have a memory of when I was a little kid, in the middle of the afternoon, they stopped the class, they rolled a television in, and we all watched my dad on the Art Linkletter show.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Frank Conniff Sr., you didn't say your dad's name.
Yes, or Frank Conniff is actually the proper pronunciation, but I changed it.
You changed it.
And are you really Philip Seymour Hoffman?
I've been asked that many times before, especially since he died, because I look like him more than ever now. I have gotten that. Unfortunately, he didn't live to play me in my life story.
So Dad pronounced it like Milton Conniff.
Milton Conniff, yeah. Although Milton Conniff spelled it
with
differently,
an A.
yeah.
Right, and then you changed it to
Now,
Conniff.
I'm going fucking crazy here. Paul, it was in a southern town.
Okay.
There's a very long... What?
No, that's not for you. That's for me. I got it. Yeah, I remember that.
It was in a southern town, a very long transformation scene.
Do we have the actor right? Are you sure it was Eleanor Powell's son?
I'm pretty sure, unless that was really...
Peter Ford, that was her son with Glenn Ford.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's
why he's in Cades County.
Have
Yeah, he's in
another
Cades
son.
County, and Fate is the Hunter.
Let me look, because I looked through all. He did 18 movies, Peter Ford, and The Little Prince is the closest I came to.
Why don't you go to Peter Ford's IMDb page and see what you come
I did
up
that.
with?
I did
no
that.
horror
Nothing.
films?
But maybe she had another son. Maybe that's the.
I think that
So go
could
to her
be it.
I'm
Wikipedia
on it. I'll
page,
be
see
back.
if she had another
I
son.
think it had the word beast in it.
You sure it's not
and
Jane
was
Powell's son?
No.
Is it like the Beast from
And-
50 Fathoms or something like
no,
that?
no. And there was an actor in it, an old character actor like R.J. something.
R.G. Armstrong?
Oh, that could be.
Who was it?
That could be.
R.G. Armstrong, who played Pruneface and Dick Tracy?
I think so. I think he was in
You know
this.
that actor.
Yeah, sure.
But I gotta
East,
go look
Eastwood used
Look
him.
that up.
Okay, we're
We're on it, folks.
I'm going to ask you about some of the movies that Gilbert has recommended on this very podcast.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Starting with Zombie Holocaust or Dr. Butcher MD. You
I
familiar
don't
with
think I'm familiar with it. Or did we did Zombie Nightmare, I think, with Adam West. on
Okay.
our
Yeah,
show.
this was one of the Guinea productions.
This was an Italian production, as he likes to point out.
They also made Zombie. And then I remember what's so funny about it was the producer was something like Mike Jones.
Uh-huh.
And then you see his real name, and it's like 10 pages long in Italian.
a lot of vowels.
Yes.
Well, what I heard about Zombie Holocaust was we must never let this happen again.
Okay, well, here's one we all know and love, but we love your take on it, and Gilbert is obsessed with this one, The Tingler.
Oh, The
Yes.
Tingler. Funny you should mention it. Trace Beaulieu and I are now doing it in our live show.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we've just started it, and it is kind of borderline good, you know. And I know that a lot of kids who saw it when it came out were very scared by it. But the Tingler is basically like a lobster shell.
It's
or something.
really weird.
Yeah, it's like a
really weird.
centipede or
Yeah,
something.
Really
Yeah,
cheaply done.
and it's William Castle, you know, who was the king of
course.
gimmicks. But we don't have like the shock seats or anything like that.
But it's
at
a
our show.
very enjoyable
It
film.
is, and Vincent Price is great in it. You know,
Give him a little bit, Gil.
Yes. Scream for your lives. The Tingler is loose in the theater. Scream. And then he says, we now return to the movie.
yeah, it's really weird, and it's all the screen goes completely dark at that
Yes.
point. You know,
Oh, it's great.
Okay,
What do you got,
right.
Paul?
Now, before I tell you what I have,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
have to work a deal.
Okay.
Okay.
If I get this right, and this is the one,
Yes.
then I get a little boost. In
Okay.
respect.
Oh, just
Little respect.
tell us the
Just
fucking title.
You're asking for too much.
All right, 1982, The Beast Within.
The Beast
The
Within.
Beast Within, yes.
Driving near a small Mississippi town in 1964, newlyweds Eli, Ronnie Cox, and Caroline
Ronnie
That was a
Cox.
porn film.
experience car trouble. When Eli goes off to look for help, Caroline
That's
gets raped
right.
and
Ronnie
is made
Cox was
pregnant
in
by a
it.
horrible creature. This is the one.
How'd you find it?
I have ways of
probably
dealing
through
with
that
these.
character.
Did you go
actor.
through R.G. Armstrong?
Yeah, R.G. Armstrong was
Hey,
the key.
Gil, we teamed up on that.
Hey,
Wow.
Nice work, Paul.
right,
Take
so
the rest of the month off.
Yeah,
I had forgot about Ronnie Cox.
yeah.
Yeah, we got to get Ronnie Cox on this show.
Yeah, he was in
he's terrific.
Beverly Hills
Terrific.
Cop 2.
He's
You
always
bet.
good.
You bet.
All right, I'm outside. If
Thank
you
you,
need me.
pal. We'll come
Yes,
back to
we
you.
won't need
through.
you.
He came through.
Okay, here's another Gilbert one, The Seven Faces of Dr. Lau.
Yeah,
That's
with
actually
Tony
a really
Randall.
good movie. Yeah, with Tony Randall. I haven't seen it in a long time, but
And
Tony Randall. You know, if you're going to cast an Asian part,
Of course.
Tony Randall is the one to go to.
and one of the
Mickey Rooney was too
Morlocks
expensive.
from the Time Machine, because it was made by the same guy.
George Powell.
But George
Yeah.
Powell.
Yeah.
And so one of the Morlocks pops up in Dr. Lau.
You got to talk to our friend Bob Burns, because not only was he friends with Ed Wood, he was friends with George Powell.
Oh, really?
And he wired some of the seats for
Now,
showing
does
of
Bob
The Tingler.
Burns, does he have like a warehouse?
Yes, he's
I
the
have
movie-
met him.
he's the movie collector.
I've been to his warehouse and I have met him.
Okay, because you
Yeah.
guys are kindred spirits.
and he got a hug from Lon Chaney Jr.
You
once.
bet.
Wow.
He knew Glenn Strange very well. He
That's
was-
amazing.
And Willis O'Brien. I mean,
Yeah,
kept
yeah.
He
interesting
looked
company.
upon Glenn Strange as like a father figure.
Really?
Here's a couple of more Gilbert classics from this show. Do you know Active Violence?
Is that with William Shatner?
No.
Is that?
I
think Van Heflin.
It's the one with Van Heflin.
Oh, Van Heflin
and Robert Ryan.
Oh, okay. You know what? I haven't seen that. It was on Turner Classic Movies one time, but I didn't get to watch it.
How about Alone in the Dark? With Martin, I believe Martin Landau.
Martin Landau, Donald Pleasance, and there's another famous actor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fuck. I can't.
Right, we'll get Paul
can't
back.
believe we have to talk to Paul again.
Was that in the 70s?
Yes.
Yeah, Martin Landau did a lot of those kind of...
Sure, without warning.
He had kind of like a bit of a wilderness period in his career.
That was a fun movie.
Yeah,
he plays Fred Dobbs in one of them, which I always love because it's a treasure of the Sierra
Madre.
Yeah.
And there was those two, Donald Pleasance and Robert Ryan. Not Robert Ryan. Donald Pleasance and
Martin Landau.
And Martin Landau.
Yeah. We'll get Paul on that one. And what about The Incident, which is the one set in New York City?
Oh,
with
you know what? I was
Tony
just
Musante
talking about that movie. I forget in what context, because I have seen that movie. And I'm not. You might think I'm joking when I say this. Actually, has a really good dramatic performance from Ed McMahon.
I was just going to say Ed McMahon.
Yes.
Movie. He's very good in it.
And Martin Sheen is one of the.
He's one of the hoods, right? No, Martin Sheen is like a. Is he one of the hoods?
He's one of the hoods.
He was an Estevez then.
Tony
Musante.
Yeah.
Bo Bridges is a guy out of the Navy.
Brock Peters in there too?
Yeah, Brock Peters.
Yeah.
Mike Kellen.
Yep.
Oh God!
It's a terrific film, and it's like it should get more recognition. It was an independently made film, almost entirely taking place on a subway.
Yeah,
low budget, and like I said, it's Ed McMahon's best dramatic performance.
Well, we love films set in New York at that time because you get to see old New York.
You see all the old, and it's a whole different New York.
It is.
But you know what? It's interesting because when I moved to LA, I became fascinated with seeing old shots of LA, but most movies made in LA, they're either done on studios or they're done in the Valley. There's not a lot of stuff at like familiar locations.
So many times I'll watch a movie and I'll recognize it as the sound stage.
Yes.
You've been on.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
They actually in the Tingler, they have this. They didn't pay for any extras in the Tingler.
Yeah.
So there's these back lot shots of buildings and stuff, and there's literally nobody around except Vincent Price and whoever else is in the scene.
Last Gilbert film is After the Fox.
I love After the Fox.
There you go.
With Peter Sellers, right?
Yeah, and
not very known.
Victor Mature.
Neil Simon's first screenplay, I think.
That's right.
And Vittorio De Sica directed.
Yeah, directed. It's very funny. I always thought it was funny. And also a great Burt Bacharach score,
Correct.
too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, that's a movie that's not that well known, and it really is.
Who is the fox? I am the fox. Who are you? I am me. Who is me? I am a thief. You caused your great poor mother grief. Oh, after the fox, after the fox. Into the hunt with chains and locks. Oh, after the fox, somebody's always chasing after the fox.
Wow.
You sang that with Robert Wool.
Yes.
Great. And really, I knew the Burt Bacharach melody, but you knew the Hal David lyrics. So
He surprises us every week.
Yeah.
And there was another movie as far as a New York film, of course, a name that's popped up on this show a billion times as the great New York director, Sidney Lumet.
right.
And that was Bye Bye Braverman.
Bye Bye Braverman with George Siegel,
You
right?
bet.
Yeah.
And Sorrel Book.
Sorrel Brook. And wasn't
And
it
Jack
written
Warden?
by Herb Gardner,
Oh, it might be.
who ended up being the head writer of Saturday Night Live?
And,
Herb Sargent.
Herb Sargent,
Right,
yeah.
Herb Sargent.
and it
That's right,
also
was.
had the only Jewish Bond villain.
Who is?
That was Dr. No. played
Joseph Weissman.
Yeah.
Very good.
Who's in a lot of those kind of gritty. He's really good in the movie Detective Story with
yes.
with Lee Grant.
With Lee Grant and Kirk Douglas.
Yep.
He plays like a kind of crazy criminal in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking of Bacharach, one of the things you mentioned in your book, and God bless you for this, is Lost Horizon.
Oh
The
yeah,
thing that split up Bacharach and David.
it ended. It's. I think the point I make in that movie is that some movies are just bad, but this was a bad movie that had a really awful consequence to it, and that it split up Burt Bacharach and Hal David, who I think one of the greatest pop songwriting teams ever, and I actually saw it in a theater when it came out, and it was embarrassing, you know.
We were talking about bad musicals on this show, and that's one we never got to.
Oh, that's right.
Have you seen it? The remake,
Yes.
the musical remake of Capper's Lost Horizon?
And I forget.
Absolutely
I
wretched.
forget
Peter
the
Finch
song
singing
that they
some of
played
Liz
in the commercial
Liv
all the
Ullman's
time.
best singing.
Liv
isn't it?
Ullman, John Gielgud.
Yeah.
Oh God!
John Gielgud doing Yellowface, pretty much.
Yeah, it's just
There
you
was
can't.
a song they played in the commercial.
Bobby Van
Bobby Van
he does a lot of bouncing.
is in it. I feel bad because I really like Bobby Van.
Me
and
too.
I feel bad that he, once that film was wrapped, he was
Now
like,
there's a movie. I wondered if you'd had it on the show. That of all people, I mean, when you see the makeup and special effects in this, you'd say that this guy, whoever did this, worked in a grocery store afterwards. And it turned out to be Rick Baker, the great
really?
Rick Baker in Octoman.
"Oh, Octoman." I haven't seen that in a while, but I'm glad Rick Baker's career recovered.
He did okay.
from it. Yeah.
Oh, my God, did he ever.
He did okay for himself.
I want Rick Baker on this show.
Oh, that would be
Let's
amazing.
ask Savini to get him on here for us.
Oh, yeah.
They're buds.
Because what an amazing makeup man.
Yeah.
Here's a question quickly from one of our fans. We do a thing
Okay.
called Grill the Guest, and you're being grilled by Luke Sinkowski, who would like to be referred to as the great Luke Ski. He says, on Invader Zim, was there a great joke, a killer joke that you wanted to put into an episode only to have Nickelodeon reject it or take it out? Can you recall one moment?
I don't have a memory of that because I was the head writer on the show, but Jonah Vasquez, who created the show, I think he's the one who always had to deal with the Nickelodeon executives, and they would. One thing I loved about Jonah Vasquez is we'd have these meetings with the executives, and they would always question the logic of stuff. This isn't logical. This doesn't track. And Jonah always had the same response to everything. Yeah, but it's funny. And I just love that. Yeah, but it's funny is actually a great
It is.
Now,
thing.
did you mention with Lost Horizon?
Yeah.
Now, I think Liv Ullman.
She's in it. He
She's
just
in
mentioned
it,
it.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was from all the Ingmar Bergman films.
bet.
And
Yeah.
this...
It's
Was-
Peter Finch, Liv Ullman, John Gielgud, Bobby Van. I'm trying to remember who else is in the cast. There's another.
God, what was that song?
Oh, God.
Fuck me.
I know the song you mean. Is it Bobby Van sings the song?
I don't know. There's one
with the,
song,
with the,
all
with the
of
Asian
them.
children?
The one that Bobby Van sang I think is called "Question Me and Answer."
That's
or
it.
Answer-
Question
No,
Me an
there's
Answer.
another
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
That I don't remember. I don't even think Burt Bacharach would remember.
All
what
right,
that
Paul,
song
come on
is.
back in for the songs from Lost Horizon before we wrap it up. You do regret, and I found this in the notes, occasionally you would regret not getting a film on
Yes.
MST, and one of them was Bela Lugosi meets a Brooklyn Gorilla.
Yes, I was.
Sammy Petrillo
You're
and
after
Duke
Gilbert's own
Mitchell.
heart here.
Well, the thing is that's not an example of not being able to get the rights to it. That's an example of me suggesting the film and the rest of the staff saying, "No, you're wrong. We shouldn't do that film." I think there was some sense that comedies were not the best thing for us to do.
I see.
But I was so fascinated by Duke Mitchell and Sammy Petrillo that I really wanted to do it. And
It's so weird because
yeah.
Sammy Petrillo is an absolute freak of nature,
Yes.
Jerry Lewis doppelganger.
yeah,
And Duke Mitchell is not really...
he's in the general vein of smooth singer.
Yeah,
you know.
not handsome,
Yeah.
but passable looking.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Like a Tony Martin knockoff.
Yeah,
more than
exactly.
a Dean Martin knockoff.
More Tony Martin than Dean Martin.
Okay.
Very well put.
So there were a bunch of Burt Bacharach songs. Question me and answer.
Question me and answer.
Living together, growing together.
Oh,
which was
living together, laughing together. We're living together as days go by. Da, da,
All right,
da,
let's see what
da.
Gilbert can get. The world is a circle.
Oh, the world is a circle. Yeah, that
a
was
circle jerk, I
Share
think.
the joy. I might frighten her away. The things I will not miss.
No, it's just living together is the one
That's
I
the one.
remember.
Yeah.
And they're all like dancing out on the beach.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, when they're-
I doubt there's anyone on the planet singing numbers from Lost Horizon, the musical, at this moment. But Gilbert Gottfried is.
Well, that's the crazy thing about it is the songs are so forgettable, and it was such a flop. And this is Burt Bacharach and Hal David could do no wrong up until this. Everything they did was hugely popular,
Yeah.
hugely successful, and brilliant. And that's what's just so.
You and John get some pretty heavy musical guests on your
We
show.
do,
You've
in
had
fact.
Herb Alpert and
Herb Alpert, who was great. We've had Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
We
Didn't get
had-
Bacharach. Have you tried?
Oh, I would love to have Burt Bacharach.
We want
on.
to try to get him on this show. We
that
feel
would
like
be-
it's such a long
That
shot.
would be incredible, yeah. And we just had Don Was yesterday.
Yeah,
who
saw that.
Produced all those great
I
records.
once worked with Willie Nelson.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, on Alice in Wonderland. I
Uh-huh.
think
I
it
never knew
was.
that.
Yeah, there was like an afternoon TV show of Alice in Wonderland, and she would like. I remember in this, he's like the troubadour,
Uh-huh.
and he keeps coming on to sing these songs of what's happening.
Wow.
You never told me that.
Yeah,
We work with Willie Nelson.
yeah,
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
All right,
very,
Frank.
very nice guy.
Your last question is going to be about the Marx Brothers.
Okay.
I know you're a Marx guy like we
I
are.
am.
Okay, we've had two Marx Brothers related guests on this show. We've had an author and Steve Stoliar who was
I've met
Groucho's.
him.
You
Yeah,
met
he's
Steve?
a great guy.
A great mimic,
Yeah.
by the way. Are you in the camp that prefers the 4 Marx Brothers to the 3 Marx Brothers? Are you a Zeppo?
You know what? I would say yes, only in that I think all of the great Marx Brothers movies, with the exception of A Night at the Opera, are the 4 Marx Brothers. You know, I mean, Duck Soup is the 4 Marx
Yes,
Brothers. That's
the
my
Paramount
favorite
ones.
one.
Yeah.
All the Paramount ones have Zeppo in them. And he doesn't make it any less funny, you know. They keep the and also I think with Zeppo in the films, which makes them different from the MGM films, is that the idea that there's a romantic lead in it, which they kind of do with Zeppo, but they don't really take it seriously.
Right.
You know, like
That's
in
right.
Monkey Business, he supposedly is having a romance, and it's kind of just part of the goofiness. Whereas when Irving Thalberg brought them to MGM, you know, they really took the romance, like Alan Jones and Kitty Carlisle.
That's one of the reasons we don't care so much for the MGM films. is
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they overshadowed the Marxes.
Yeah, but I think, you know, A Night at the Opera, I think, is brilliant. And I think each subsequent MGM film still has great stuff in it, but they kind of go down in quality a
See,
little bit.
I wasn't all that crazy about Night at the Opera.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I thought that was the beginning of the end.
It was, but it also, you know, it resurrected their careers. I mean, Duck Soup was a flop, which
Yeah,
is amazing
sad.
to think of. They got dropped by Paramount. They were over with as film stars, and only because Irving Thalberg came along and said, "Listen, I know how to make a successful Marx Brothers movie," and he was right. And
Made 2 of them.
Yeah, and he extended their career for another like 7 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So
It makes you wonder, when we've talked about this, Gil, what would have happened had Thalberg lived?
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Kept
I
making
know.
films for MGM.
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that could have happened. In one book I read, George S. Kaufman was going to sign a contract with MGM to start directing films, which he only directed one film, like in the 40s.
The Senator is Indiscreet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But he was going to actually shift his focus from Broadway to maybe making movies for. But when Thalberg died, that was the end of it.
And I think there was talk at one point, Nat Hiken,
Nat Hiken. Yeah.
Nat Hiken
Yeah, there was talk.
wanted to write a Marx Brothers
Right.
movie, but they figured, we've got our
That
own
la-
writers.
Oh, you mean in the 30s or?
No, and later on.
Oh, right,
when
because
they
I know also
needed one.
Billy Wilder planned a Marx Brothers movie called
Can you imagine?
A Day at the UN,
That's
I think
right.
it was going to be called, and only because I think Harpo got sick or something, and they couldn't get the insurance to do it. But they actually, I think Billy Wilder and I.L. Diamond actually started writing it.
Can you imagine, Gilbert?
That
Billy
would've been-
Wilder
That would have been amazing.
and the
Yeah.
Marx Brothers. So plugs. Mm-hmm. You're doing the Mads tour.
I'm doing the Mads tour. Go to the Mads Are Back, our Facebook page, and on Twitter. And we have gigs coming up in Chicago and in El Paso and Phoenix and Dallas and Pittsburgh and all over the place. So
Are you still doing Podhouse 90?
I have a new one that's in production,
Okay.
and that's
You and your talented brother, Tony?
yeah, Tony. He writes the music, and they're kind of like musical comedy radio plays. I do about one of them a year, and there's a new one that Tony's writing the music for now, and I also think I'm going to have a new book out pretty soon.
Great.
So
What's that about?
that's going to be. It's going to be called How to Write Cheesy Movies, and it's going to be basically a parody of the Sid Field screenplay book.
I love it.
Because the premise of it is I don't presume that I could teach anyone how to write a good movie, but after working at Mystery Science Theater for as long as I did, I think I can teach people how to write a bad one.
I love that.
So, and also Tell Me Everything, and also my podcast, Movie Sign with the Mads, that I do with Trace Beaulieu and Carolina Hidalgo, and we just talk about a movie every week.
You are busy.
And
You've got a
your
lot of
book,
stuff going on.
25 Mystery Science Theater 3000 films that changed my life in no way whatsoever.
And the dedication of the book is very sweet, by the way.
Oh, yeah, because I dedicate it to the guys who did change my life, who were the people that I worked with on Mystery Science Theater.
And our love to John.
I will.
Who's a terrific guy.
He's great. He's the best.
We could go on
We
for
could,
hours.
For hours. Finding
Next
out.
time we'll do an entire Sid Melton show.
I'd love that. I think on
We'll
the
work in Sid Tomac from The Life of Riley.
I think I tweeted that I was watching On the Town on Turner Classic Movies. I think I tweeted that it's the best Sid Melton movie. Just as I tweeted that The Bandwagon was the best Herb Vergran movie.
I love him. Well, he was on a lot of Supermans.
Yo, a ton of them.
I always thought it was Herb Vigrand.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
I might be pronouncing it
You
wrong.
know this actor.
Oh, yeah.
There was always a villain in the color Superman episodes, the
Yeah.
ones that
Oh,
weren't
yes.
scary. Yeah.
He was in Superman
Always
and,
a lame-o
and
villain.
also every other thing that was ever done.
Now,
Yes.
what was that Frankenstein? What was that Superman one where they put like a face up in the sky? There was like some face
On the George Reeves series?
Yeah,
You
I
got-
remember it
You
scaring
got me
me.
stumped.
as
Throwing
a
that
kid.
one out to the fans.
Yeah.
And there was an episode of Superman where Superman is responsible for someone's death.
I know
Yes,
the one you're
well,
talking
yes, I
about.
know
and
the
that
one, too.
episode scared the shit out of me.
Is
when
that
I
the
was
one
a kid.
the guy comes and finds his secret identity?
He finds a secret identity. I think
Yes.
it's a couple, and he flies them to a remote mountain.
Yes, he does.
And then and he leaves them there, and he goes back to Metropolis, and then they try to climb down the mountain, and they are both killed. And
Yes.
and it's one of those early,
Yeah.
very film noirish Superman episodes, which are different from the color.
Very much so.
And when I saw it as a kid, I thought it was just really scary.
Me too. Can you believe Phyllis Coates is still alive?
Is she really?
She really is.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phyllis Coates was the more film noir one.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then Noel
Noel
Neal
Neal.
was the more friendly,
More
wholesome.
comic booky
Yeah.
kind of.
I never cared for the color ones, but the
yeah,
black and white
the
ones
black
are good
and white
and they hold
ones
up.
are really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in one of the Supermans, they basically redid they probably had it in their warehouse, like the Saucer Men
Oh yeah.
makeup.
Well, the Mole Men stuff is also creepy.
Yeah, that's a very creepy, weird. They released that as a movie, I think,
yeah.
and
It still gives you the willies a
it
little
does.
bit.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we let this man go on with
yes.
his life?
This has been-
do another hour.
but I will anyway.
This has been Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, and we've been talking to Frank Conniff.
And we could keep talking to Frank Conniff
Yes.
for days and days. Thanks for coming in and doing this,
Thank you
man.
so much for having me. It was a joy.
Our fans will love this one.
We'll send them cheesy movies, the worst we can find. He'll have to sit and watch them all, then we'll monitor his mind. Now keep in mind, Joe can't control where the movies begin or end, because he used those special parts to make his robot friends. Robot roll call Cabot, Gypsy, Tom Servo, Croy. You're wondering how he eats and breathes and other science facts. Then repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax.